Everybody, Will the Tech here. This is like the fourth cut of this thing so far. I'm really nervous, even though I do this in front of 80 people every week. But for some reason on camera, I don't know. I'm nervous, regardless. I'm a tech over there at Pecan Haven. I'm doing this recording for Palmetto residents. I was told by a counselor that they want to show this during the lecture. I was also asked to do this by several Pecan Haven residents that have graduated and just want to watch it on YouTube. So that's what I'm gonna do here. My sobriety date is 3/22/22. I've been around recovery a lot longer than that, but it took me over 10 years to reach the 5 month mark. But during that time, I studied the Big Book. During those 10 years, studied the Big Book. And I just really thought I knew better and didn't want to apply it to my life. They always say, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, not thoroughly memorized our book. But, now that I'm getting further in recovery, this knowledge that I've picked up, all the seeds that have been planted over the past decade, I'm starting to try to turn that into something that is useful for other people in recovery. So this video is designed for people that are brand new in recovery, do not know the Big Book. Maybe it's their first rehab, or maybe they just want to delve deeper into some knowledge about the Big Book, which, by the way, I learned a lot of this just from personal experience and from the Joe and Charlie speaker tapes. So look into those if you want to know more about the history, because you'll find that I'm going to give you some of the history of AA, but my knowledge of it is so limited compared to the stuff that they put out there. And there's also a good book called AA Comes of Age. But when I do my Big Book study on step one, or the doctor's opinion rather, I always like to start off with a disease concept theory, just summary. Okay, so the thing is, we've got what they're saying is we've got a disease of the body, the mind, and the spirit. Threefold disease. There's also a threefold solution. But to understand what the body part is, it is what is called, we have a physical allergy. Now, the definition they're giving of allergy doesn't mean you break out in hives or handcuffs, like they always say. But it means you have an abnormal reaction to a substance once you put it in your body. Okay, so once I put alcohol, or in my case meth, or whatever, into my system, I'm going to develop the phenomenon of craving. I'm going to have an abnormal reaction compared to what a normal person has. Now, a normal person may drink a beer and, once they're done with that beer, they go on about their life. They feel a little bit, tipsy, out of control, whatever, and they start to maybe not like the feeling of being out of control. But once I put a beer into my body, or my drug of choice, whatever it may be, same disease, makes no difference. Once I put it in my body, I have to be physically removed from the substance before I'm going to quit using it. Okay, so, I might tell myself, I'm going to take one Xanax. Just one. One doesn't hurt anybody, you know what I mean? But the problem with me is I have this disease, okay? And this physical allergy is going to be set off by that first pill. And then it's going to snowball, okay? I'm going to be like, well, one worked so good that I could surely take one more, right? Right? Because the one worked fine. I'm still here. So I take one more, and then I take two more, and then I take five more. And before you know it, I've eaten 20 Xanax bars. I'm driving around Jackson, Mississippi, almost wrecking my car, getting, running from the police or whatever it may be. In my case, going around and boxing random people in their front yards. Just whatever crazy bullshit happens when I do that. This is all because I took the first one. Okay, because it is a foregone conclusion that when I take one, I am going to take more. And why is that? It's because I have a disease. Okay, so that's the physical allergy. Now, the mental obsession means that when I'm sober, when I am sober, I am going to think that I can control this thing the next time. Why? Because in the past, my physical allergy got set off but I learned my lesson. I'm not going to eat 20 Xanax bars again. I'd have to be crazy. I'm going to wind up driving around Jackson, Mississippi, boxing people in their front yards, then running from the cops. You know what I mean? Learned it. Not going to do it again. No chance, no how. Okay? But the problem is, I have a physical allergy. So when I tell myself I'm going to control it, it's like I haven't accepted the fact yet that I've got this allergy, that I'm going to develop the phenomenon of craving. So I always think next time's going to be different, okay? But it never is, from my experience, right? So every single time I've ever put a substance in my body, it snowballs. And sometimes I'll try a little cross addiction, a little substitution. You know, I might, I've never been a big drinker, but the second I drink beer, I go shoot meth. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's the physical allergy. And the second I put a substance in my body, I'm going to go find, it's not doing in my brain what I want it to do. So I'm going to go find what does what I want it to do. And, we can get more into that later. But the last part of this is what is called the spiritual malady. Okay? So the spiritual malady says that at my baseline, I'm restless, irritable, discontented. Okay, so something's wrong with me. All right, my baseline says something needs to be fixed. And you know what? I'm gonna fix it. Okay, so your problem is not actually drugs and alcohol. Your problem is yourself. Okay, so my problem is me. The spiritual malady says I'm a little bit pissed. I'm a little bit anxious. I'm a little bit depressed. I'm a little bit awkward. Something's off. I have social anxiety. I have depression. Whatever it may be, something's off, and I'm going to fix it. Okay, so drugs and alcohol have been my solution in the past, my solution to my problems with myself. All right, but what we're offering you here in the 12 steps is a brand new solution to replace drugs and alcohol, to make you okay with yourself and to teach you a new way of living. All right. Places like Pecan Haven, like Palmetto, they hand you this on a silver platter. All you have to do is reach out and take it. Okay. Now, how do you take it? You shouldn't know. Right? So the whole point is you need to let someone who's qualified tell you what to do. Okay, that's what these counselors are there for. All right? We text try to guide you, but really listen to your counselor. Okay, they know a lot more than we do. All right, so let's dive right in. We got this 3-part disease. We'll get in this. The solution, just a quick little, explanation is it is recovery, unity, service. Okay, so the body part is unity. That means like showing up and participating in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings, stuff like that. Recovery section means it's the mind part, and it means actually working the 12 steps. We're trying to get you the daily reprieve from the mental obsession. Okay, so working the 12 steps is the mental part of this. And then the spiritual aspect is being of service. Step 12. Like going out, helping other people, being altruistic, which that word's going to come up in the doctor's opinion, not expecting anything in return. Because selfishness is one of the major problems of this disease. We're constantly concerned with self. We want to control how we feel at all times. We want to control our external circumstances. Sometimes we get resentful because we can't control it. So what do? We get a little restless, irritable, discontented, and guess what? We're going to fucking fix it. All right. So let's jump into the doctor's opinion. If you have your books, it's on page XXV, right after the forward to the 4th edition. Okay. This episode is brought to you by C4. I almost need to pick up a slip chip. This shit's so strong. All right. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who've had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. So, to put this in context, this is Dr. William Silkworth of Towns Hospital in New York City. Okay, so Dr. Silkworth actually, I think in college, was really interested in treating alcoholism, or studying it rather, and treating it. But there was no money in it. Why? Mainly because it was taboo, and because alcoholics never pay their bills. They got no money. They spend it all on alcohol. So there was really no money in it. And but Dr. Silkworth lost his ass in the Great Depression. He had made all kinds of investments and just lost everything. So this Mr. Towns of Towns Hospital offered him a job with a very small stipend uh, to live by day to day. And Dr. Silkworth got to do what he was passionate about. But again, this was taboo. Okay, so it was very prominent men didn't work with alcoholics back then. And, there really was no solution back then like there is now. There was no 12 steps. Okay, so they basically said, you're screwed. I'm sorry. Like, we'll detox you and then send you on your way, and good luck, buddy, because we barely ever see this work. Okay, so that's why, a lot of times people will come to treatment and they'll be like, I'm just here to detox. And it's like they have no plan of actually doing anything. Or they might even think they do, and the second they walk out, this mental obsession creeps back in. Like, I learned my lesson, just detox, I'm going to control it this time. Or I'm going to switch to beer, lay off the hard stuff, whatever it may be. It's been going on throughout history, okay, and it's like almost always a failure, So it like saddens my heart to see people try this thing one more time, because not everybody makes it back to the room. All right, to whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless, Bill Wilson. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. Wow. All of a sudden, statistics start leaning in favor of recovery. Okay, so you may have 1 in 1,000 people that have a religious experience or go to church and they start recovering in pre-1934. But all of a sudden, they've got 100 people with a high success rate in one area recovering. And these guys all know each other, and it says that they are presenting their conceptions to other alcoholics. So step 12, impressing upon them that they must do with others. Okay, so that's all service work, right? This become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship. Okay, so that's one part of the 3-part disease antidote, if you will, right? The fellowship, unity, showing up to AA meetings, being a part of the fellowship. Okay, so right there we're covering 2 major things. I personally know scores of cases who were the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group, that they may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. So they're getting a glowing endorsement from Dr. Silkworth. He's essentially saying this. He's saying, look, I don't have a solution, but statistics say these guys do. Listen to them. Please listen to them. And he'll get into more why he's like begging you to listen to these people. But then it says this, which you may think is no big deal and skip over it, but it's kind of cool to look at the history of this. Very truly yours, William D. Silkworth, MD. So in the first edition of this book, that is not in there because, like I said, it was taboo. So William Silkworth would not allow his name to be published in the first edition. But come 1950s, I forget the year, 54, 55, something like that, Silkworth, the American Medical Association finally recognized alcoholism as a disease. So Silkworth changed his mind. He started wanting credit for what he wrote in this book and contributed. So second edition onward, they actually signed William D. Silkworth. It's not anonymous anymore. So then we jump into the first 100, or Bill writing rather, in the first 100 editing for this part. The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter had been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms that we have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. Did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we are in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These were some true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Okay, so back in the day, for thousands of years, there has been alcoholics, and they never once, ever in the history of mankind thought or said or had a doctor say that something was different in the body of the alcoholic. Silkworth is the first one, so he just made history. Okay, so they always said, like, this is a religious problem. This person is mentally defective. They're too emotional. They need God. They have too many ghouls in their blood, whatever it may be, right? It was like a spiritual and mental thing. But, prescribe a bunch of leeches and try to cure you of alcoholism. Okay, but now he's saying, hey, we're digesting this shit differently. He didn't use these terms, but it's like we're digesting alcohol differently. We have different enzymes. This is the stuff we understand today. Neurons are firing off differently in your brain. Okay, so this is physical, all right? But yes, there's also a mental and spiritual aspect that they get into later. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy, again, an abnormal reaction to alcohol, interests us. As laymen, our opinion is till its soundness may of course mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that this explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization, we favor Palmetto, we favor Pecan Haven, we favor you detoxing and going to rehab for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged, because it is hard to work this shit on the street when your mind is not clear. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be clear before he is approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. Now, here's the meat and potatoes, fellas. All right, we're getting into the second letter from Dr. Silkworth where all the good shit is. Okay, the doctor writes, I'm so excited. The doctor writes, the subjects presented in this book seems to me of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the countries concerning country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology, so a good friend of mine, Tiffany L., told me that for moral psychology, you can just substitute the word spirituality. Okay, so a moral psychology was urgent important to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception, meaning we don't know how to do it, right? We don't have a prescription for spirituality. Okay, what with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic, man-made knowledge. Okay, so he's saying, yeah, so spirituality may work, but we don't understand it. So we don't know what to do as scientists, as medical men. Like, we know that this works, but we don't know why, and we don't know how to do it. Okay, so powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. That could be your higher power, for instance. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital. While here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application. So this is the how. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, we consented. They were a little suspicious. The cases we have followed have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness, the altruism of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more, a power with a capital P, which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Okay, so is that a typo right there? Capital P? What are they talking about, guys? Well, they're talking about the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. They're talking about our higher power. Your higher power can be whatever you want it to be. It just can't be one thing, and that is yourself. Okay? You cannot be your own higher power. That is just agreed upon. That is something I believe, at least. You can try it, but... All right. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. I don't know what they're saying there. Maybe they're saying that you need to detox before you work your assignments. Hold on, excuse me. You need to detox before you can work your assignments for small group. You know, like, for instance, when I went to Palmetto, I took one of those personality tests, whatever. I took the mental exam that they give sometimes when you're on eval. While I was on eval, that's a whole nother story. But I was on eval. I took the thing on Librium or Ativan or whatever the heck it was. And I came out with all kinds of personality disorders, like antisocial personality disorder, friggin' sociopathic shit. And it was because I was high when I took it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, my brain needs to be cleared before I can be diagnosed bipolar, before I can be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, all that. Of course I'm going to score weird when my brain is on drugs. Okay. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average drinker. This does not occur in my sister. All right? Laura freaking collects bottles of wine and will wait till they're aged to drink them. She's also the kind of person that will take a drink and then leave the glass on the table until later when she's going to do dishes. You know what I mean? That is not a thing that happens with me, you know? So she's the average temperate drinker, and I'm the alcoholic. But let's go further. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. So don't try hand sanitizer thinking it's going to work out better, guys. And once they form the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them, and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. This message can interest us and hold these alcoholic people. The message which can interest us and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. All right. For all the emotional appeal seldom suffices, guys. I try to talk people out of AMA and all the time. And I've learned not to just beg them, because why would they care? You know what I'm saying? Like, this has got to be, they have to be relying on a power greater than themselves. They can't rely on me. When I was in my addiction, you know, my family begged me. I remember I was living in the Walmart parking lot in Texas. I had gone off the grid. And I remember I finally, after a few weeks living there, talked to my mom on the phone. And of course I was high. But I remember she was crying. And she was just like, please come back. We love you. These people you're hanging out with don't love you. And I remember I just laughed in her face like a psychopath. I just laughed at her. I said, I don't care if they love me. I'm in it for the fucking drugs. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for the emotional appeal, it meant nothing to me. It bounced right off like a brick wall, a tennis ball on a brick wall. Okay? So it wasn't until I was willing to believe in a power greater than myself, I was willing to not call the shots anymore and to turn my will and my life over, that anything mattered to me anymore, right? Anything outside of my addiction. because I would have sacrificed anything to keep it going. And I did. I sacrificed everything on the altar of addiction in order to get that next time. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic, unselfish movement now growing up among them. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Sounds obvious, right? Have you met those people that say, I drink because I like the taste? You know what I'm saying? Who likes Dr. Pepper in there? Anybody? I like Dr. Pepper, yet I love the taste of Dr. Pepper. But I have yet to sit down and drink a case of Dr. Pepper back to back. I'm not drinking alcohol for the taste. If I did, I would have one or two drinks. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't get shit-faced hammered until I'm throwing up and falling all over myself. You know, so it's like, these people are just delusional that say that, unless they're the average temperate drinker. But the true alcoholic doesn't drink for the taste. Okay? Besides, Dr. Pepper's way better than alcohol. I know there's somebody that disagrees with me out there, but they're wrong. Okay. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, while they're having consequences, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. Okay, so we've got, I'm a meth addict, former meth addict in recovery. So when I was on meth, if there's any meth heads out there, okay, you're out at 3 a.m., you're naturally high, and who are the only other people that are out at 3 a.m.? Okay, you've got police, who were the enemy at the time, and you got other meth heads. Right, so when I'm looking and all my friends are doing meth, why? Because if they're not doing meth, I have no reason to hang out with them, and they sure as hell don't have any reason to hang out with me. You know, because I'm banging meth in a car at 3 a.m. in the Walmart parking lot. What normal person is going to want to hang out with me, you know? So I'm looking around. All my friends are on meth. All the people I see at 3 a.m. in the Walmart parking lot are on meth. So I start to think that, hey, everyone's doing it. Well, no, it's the vast minority of society that is doing this. But the only people I come in contact with are doing it. So I start to think that my alcoholic, my drug addict life is the only normal one. Why? Because I can't differentiate the true from the false. I'm fucking delusional. You know? So we got... They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity, the average temperate drinker. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful and with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. So what that's saying right there is, stone cold sober, I'm restless, irritable, discontented. Like we talked about earlier, something's off. I'm going to fix it. Okay? So what do? I look around and I see this average temperate drinker taking a few drinks, and I'm like, I'm going to be like that guy. Why? Because I learned my lesson a long time ago, and I'm going to fix the way I feel. I'm going to change the way I feel. You know, people that already feel good don't change the way they feel. You know? But I am. I'm going to do this. So I look around, see people controlling it. I think I'm going to be one of them. Soon as I drink it, I set off the physical allergy, and I drink and drink and drink more. Because the phenomenon of craving has developed. I go through a whole spree. I'm living in the Walmart parking lot again, vomiting everywhere, shooting up meth. You know, I run out of money. Okay? Go to Pecan Haven, go to Palmetto, emerging remorseful. I will never do this again with a firm resolution. Firm resolution, never going to do it again. But the problem is, I'm not really in recovery. I'm in discovery, and I'm unwilling to get in recovery. So I start feeling a little restless, irritable, discontented. I say, I'm going to AMA, guys, but using is the last thing on my mind. I've got to pay my car note. I've got to go text my girlfriend. Whatever it may be, my mind's going to tell me 100,000 reasons why I don't need to be in rehab anymore. And I'm going to go out, maybe even delusional enough because I can't differentiate the true from the false, to think I'm really just going to pay a car note. Next thing you know, I'm stopping at the liquor store a quarter of a mile down the road. Or if you're at Palmetto, it's like 8 miles. Okay? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm feeling restless, irritable, discontented. So I AMA, I go drink, and the same thing happens. Set off the physical allergy, go on a spree in the Walmart parking lot, emerge remorseful, the firm resolution, go back to treatment, and until I'm willing to do something different, I will be caught in the vicious cycle over and over and over. And I told you earlier, you know, it took me 10 years to get this far in sobriety, 8 months as of today. And it's because I was caught in this vicious cycle. I wasn't willing to take direction and do something different. So that you should highlight that paragraph in your book. That's important stuff. On the other hand, and strange to say as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change, a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience, psychic change, personality shift, whatever you want to call it, has occurred, the very same person who seems doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that he be required to follow a few simple rules. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Faced with a problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. I've had many men who had, for example, worked with a period of months on the same problem or business deal, which was to be settled on a certain date favorably to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount importance to all other alcoholics, so that the important appointment was not met. These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. So we're back to the physical allergy, guys. It's not just mental. There are so many situations which arrive out of the phenomenon of craving which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. The classification of alcoholics seems most difficult, and there is much detail inside the scope of this book. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. We are all familiar with this type. They're always going on the wagon for keeps. They are often over-remorseful and make many resolutions, but never a decision. There's the type of man who is unwilling to admit he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand or environment. There is the type who always believes that after being entirely free from alcohol for a period of time, he can take a drink without danger. There is the manic-depressive type, who is perhaps the least understood by his friends and about whom a whole chapter would be written. And then here's the next classification, which is all you guys, I'm sure. There's the types of alcohol entirely normal in every respect, except in the effect alcohol has upon them. They are often able, intelligent, friendly people. See, I knew that was you. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. Their bodies are different. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment, which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. We just can't drink. All right, but the program is giving you a way to change your life so that you don't drink, because the mental obsession is a pain in the ass and it's very powerful, right? So unless we're working this out on a spiritual plane, we're doing the body, the mind, and the spirit, we're in real trouble, guys, of that mental obsession taking over and then kicking off the physical allergy and getting caught in the vicious cycle over and over and over for 10 years, right? If you make it that far. This immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate. Much has been written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be the case of pathological mental deterioration. He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was the only living, one might say, to drink. I've been there. Only living to do drugs. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. Following the elimination of alcohol, there was found to be no permanent brain injury. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. 1 year later, he called to see me, and I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the band by name and partly recognized the feature, but there was all resemblance ended from there. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. I talked to him for some time, but was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger, and so left me. A long time had passed with no return to alcohol. When I need a mental uplift, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. The patient had made his own diagnosis, deciding his situation hopeless, had hidden in a deserted barn determined to die. He was rescued by a searching party and in desperate condition brought to me. Following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me in which he frankly stated he thought the treatment was a waste of effort unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower to resist the impulse to drink. His chronic alcohol problem was so complex and his depression so great that we felt his only hope would be through what we then called moral psychology, and we doubt that would have any effect. However, he did become sold on the ideas contained in this book. He has not had a drink for many years. I see him now and then, and he is as fine as a specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet. I earnestly advised every alcoholic to read this book through, I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through, and though perhaps he came to scoff, he may remain to pray. That is the end of the doctor's opinion. Quick few notes. Though he came to scoff, he may remain to pray. That is exactly how I was. I was a hardcore atheist. I was a Satanist at one point, but it was really all atheism. I didn't believe in anything. I was just doing it because it was metal. And I came to this program, and when I saw the word God, when I saw higher power, when I saw whatever, God can stand for whatever you want it to stand for, good orderly direction, great outdoors, group of drunks, or God, whatever. When I saw that word and higher power, I laughed. I laughed at these fools, But then it became hard to ignore when I saw this working in other people's lives. And it took me forever before I finally gave these steps credit. Why? Because if I'm trying to quit drinking, alcohol is mentioned one time in the 12 steps. Okay, so if alcohol is my problem, why the hell isn't it in all 12 steps? Why are the 12 steps, don't buy beer, don't keep it in the fridge, stay away from the liquor store? You know what I mean? That would be the 12 steps if drugs and alcohol were the problem, but instead the problem is you. So these 12 steps are a few simple rules to make your life great. Now, all you have to do is be willing to grasp it. And I'm going to explain it in one little analogy, and then we'll be done. So the 12 step, does anybody play the guitar or the piano? The 12 steps is, there's rules to it, right? There's keys of things, chords and all kinds of stuff. Once you learn these rules, or suggestions rather, they're not really rules, they're suggestions. When you don't know them, when you're playing the guitar, it sounds like chaos, right? And you can play a lot of stuff, but it doesn't make any sense, and it's terrible. It sounds bad to the ears. No one wants to listen to that shit. That's kind of like your life right now. When you're not living by rules, suggestions, following awesome suggestions. When you're not following them, it's chaos. It's terrible. But when you learn these suggestions, or when you implement these suggestions and you learn some basic rules to life, all of a sudden you're playing the chords, you're playing in the right key, you're playing a masterpiece. And that's why it improves your life. Anyway, I'm Will the Tech. Thank you for letting me share this with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want me to make another one.